Hi, everybody, and good evening. Welcome to this event where we're trying to get rid of our worries with respect to wet waste management. My name is Hamsa. I'm General Manager at ProEarth Ecosystems. ProEarth enables 8 tons of wet waste composting, 40 metric tons of garden waste management on a monthly basis. We also enable recyclables management and have, so far looked at about 30 plus tons of recyclables that have been sent for recycling. We believe in enabling zero waste communities and are here to partner and walk the path, in PMC, in PCMC, in surrounding Gram Panchayats. And we're very passionate about managing waste. Um, we have with us today an esteemed panel of residents who have walked the path and have implemented the solution. Unfortunately, Makarand has not been able to join in, but we still have Ashwini and Sidharth here. I'll just do a quick round of introductions. Ashwini is a resident and team member of waste management team at Aditya Priest Park. She's also an entrepreneur. Sidharth Naik has championed composting in Roseland residency and has been an active citizen in many environmental programs in PCMC. We also have with us Anil Gokarn, director founder of ProEarth Ecosystems. Anil has 10 years of experience in the automobile industry, and he left that to find his passion in waste management and started ProEarth in 2014. He has played a very active role in helping to implement composting in 500 plus societies, along with a very well-known organization called Inora. ProEarth finds its footing through a social entrepreneurship, program that Inora started, and we started our journey in 2014. Uh, Jumping sort of straight into the webinar, a warm welcome to all of you, and I will now start with a series of questions. I'll open the floor, and we'll just sort of hear from maybe Ashwini and Siddharth in terms of what sort of inspired you to start the composting within your own society's premises. Ashwini, Siddharth, over to you. Really very happy to hear your thoughts.
Yeah, hi, this is Ashwini from Aditya Breeze Park, Balewadi. So actually for us, it was started with Inora, with Anil, like 7-8 years ago. And for some reason, it kind of stopped in the middle and it was not smooth, but it's smooth from last 3 years. I was not active before 8 years, but I was just thinking why, what to do and how to make it happen again. So I started talking to people, and people were aware of segregating and all. They were segregating, but the system was not, somehow it was not it was not supporting whatever they were doing. Actually, the segregation part was done properly, but the pickup and composting was not happening properly. So last 3 years ago, from last 3 years, it's been very smoothly running in our society. And I just it was the basic things were done already from Inora. I just took an initiative, and I just did little work. I spoke to people. They were very they were very aware, and they were ready to do everything, and they were segregating already. So for us, it was very smooth.
Siddharth, maybe you could add in your point.
Hi everyone. Thanks ProEarth and the team for organizing this. So for me, actually, I started at my home, the composting, before I could take it to the my community level or my society level. So few years back, like somewhere in 2015 or 16. So I decided to start composting using the daily dump khamba at my home, along with 3 or 4 friends in my society. And since I was part of the management team at Roseland, I'm still part of the management team at Roseland. So for initial few years, I did the composting at my home and understood what are the different what is the process, what are the challenges, or is there any challenges. So post that, what we did was we first started with implementing the 2-bin 1 bag, or which is the 3-way segregation, which is the best model of segregation in Roseland. And that was the first step. So before we started the composting project, because our society is a very large society, 4,000 plus residents, 1,000 flats, we get around 400 to 500 kgs of almost like half a ton of kitchen waste every day. So it's like a huge scale. So before trying out something, what we wanted to do was to focus on the quality of segregation. So that is where we started we started with the 2-bin 1 bag or 3-way segregation. And so that was the first step. So we did not directly go into composting of the kitchen waste. So even in segregation, we ensured that the segregation right from source or from your home till it is picked up until it is delivered at the composting center, it is done in the 3-way method. Because once you segregate at source and after that it is mixed at any step during that process, then the whole effort goes into waste. So the key part in composting is to ensure that you at least get 90 to 95% good quality segregation at source. So we involved residents. So it was like a initial 1 month of activity where we have around 30 plus buildings and row houses. So we took 1 or 2 volunteers from the residents from each building, and then these residents were given the chart and they went along with the kids and other residents from that same building and from the society. So they went door to door, and for over around 2 to 3 weeks we did an awareness campaign. Because I've seen during last many years, when I've conducted sessions and have interacted with many societies in PCMC as well as PMC, sometimes the management team is interested, but the residents are not interested. There are also cases where residents are interested, but management team is not interested. But so I think you need to have all the stakeholders, participation of all the stakeholders. So that is where these volunteers from the residents itself were given they did the front ending and promotion and awareness. And then once we had the awareness campaign, then we started an enforced segregation. And then slowly in few months, we started the composting project. So initially, what we did was we did a pilot for 2-3 buildings and then see how it went. And then we slowly expanded to cover the whole society. So from the now the question comes is, what type of model you want to, or what type of model you want to implement for composting, because there are different types of models which are available. There are ready-made composting solutions available. I mean, I'm not talking about those 24-hour machines which are not actually the sustainable way. I mean, it is not composting, it is just burning of waste. So those 24-hour machines are actually, they take a lot of energy and electricity costs, as well as there is a lot of capex involved in that, and it's not a sustainable method. It is just burning of waste. So so there is a nice blog written by Savita Hiremat she is from Bangalore. So she has documented and it's a very good documentation. She has documented around, I think now almost like 15 to 20 different models of composting. What are the pros, what are the cons? So I did study her blogs and looked at what could be the cost effective, as well as see, it is also for a housing society, where the people's money is involved. So there is a lot of due diligence you need to make before you select a composting model. One is about the cost, second is about the space, and the third is about how easy it is to maintain, because it should not happen that every day I need to go there, and because I also have my professional work, personal life, and also it cannot be like I can be there every day. So it has to be a self-sustainable model. So that is where the study was done, and then we picked up one of the low cost and easy to maintain model. And then again, I've been working with Anil. I know Anil for quite some time now, many years, and he has also been guiding us about any tweaks into that model and how to do that. But yeah, for last around almost 5 years, it has been running smoothly. We also got the Swachh Bharat Award from Ministry of Urban Affairs few years back. So I think the important point is segregation at source. So that is very, very important. Segregation at source, and we also have a lot of best practices which we have implemented in Roseland. Another very good best practice is we have a common segregation center in our society where people or residents can, at their convenience, they can come and drop plastic waste, cardboard waste, thermocol, glass, e-waste. Anytime they can collect at home and they can, drop. See, the problem is we live in small flats and homes, so it is very difficult to accumulate that waste. So once in a week, the residents can come down and then drop that waste at our common center. And from there, we have partnership with different NGOs and agencies and vendors who pick up the waste from our society. Okay. So I think that's in a summary.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
So there are sort of like, I'm just going to break down a couple of things that you spoke, right? So the first one is, when you start something, there are always challenges. One part of it was you said about how managing committees ready, but citizens are not, and vice versa. In case of Roseland and in case of Aditya Breeze, maybe could you just spend a few minutes to sort of explain what your initial hurdles were and how did you sort of put that together? Ashwini, do you want to go first? Maybe you can start and then maybe Sidharth can.
For us, residents were interested, but somehow managing committee was not ready, and it took time to convince them, actually. And all the segregation and all how to segregate and all workshops were done already, as it was started like way back. But still, people were doing. Residents were doing their job very properly, but there was no system, and it was stopped, and it again started. So there are always like 5% people who are, whatever you do, who will not be ready to do anything. So that was a challenge for us, but we know that it is not going to happen. But thankfully, it's like it's the segregation at source is happening very nicely, and people are cooperating now. And we literally went door to door, and some children, my daughter's friends, and they helped. They also came with us, and they also explained what to do. And like it took a long time to implement, but finally it was implemented. And I noticed that like 75% of the people wanted to do it, but they need a proper system which should be sustainable. So that happened, and we are good from last 2 years. With the help of ProEarth and all. We have picking up staff from ProEarth. They do composting itself, and we draw every week. Our recyclable waste is also picked up by ProEarth. So like every Monday, the pickup is done. All the e-waste, plastic, all kinds of recyclable waste is picked up from ProEarth. Right now, there are like 30% residents who are keen about it, and they are cooperating. I hope this number will increase. in coming years. Thanks.
Yeah, I think Anil also just wanted to share a couple of thoughts.
Yeah, so hi everyone. I just wanted to sort of add to what Ashwini just spoke about. I think at Aditya Breeze Park, I think there was another issue that residents were actually bringing their waste downstairs and putting it in a collective bin that was kept at each building. And then eventually we changed it to a collection system from door to door, where each resident was segregating. And just as Sidharth mentioned, we moved to that three-way segregation model as well. And there were some challenges in the beginning that we all encountered in terms of the way the housekeeping was working, the way the collection was happening. And because earlier people were in the habit of bringing it downstairs, and then we had to change the entire system. So it took a little bit of time to adjust to the new system, but I think it has now really adapted well. And I think the summary is that whatever systems you set basically have to be communicated very well across the entire community. All stakeholders need to be involved in it, and they need to understand finally how the system is going to function and what each person's responsibilities. I think that's very important. I think both Sidharth and Ashwini made that very clear in their communities. There was a lot of communication, there was a lot of information going across social media. They were holding sessions. I remember a lot of training sessions also used to happen. Sidharth was personally on weekends doing composting workshops on a regular basis. So I think all these initiatives that are taken within the community really add into building the success of the overall project.
Sidharth, maybe you can share some thoughts.
Yeah. So challenges, I think that's a good question. So see, for us, fortunately, I was part of the management team, and so and I think within management team also you need to have, because let's say the management team is 7 or 8 persons, and you are the only person who is interested, then that also doesn't, So fortunately, my management team, the chairman, secretary, everyone, including my other team members in the management team, they all supported. It was like a good support, and then we involved residents, so that was the best part. The other thing was we did not wanted to have someone. We did not wanted to have a new agency coming in or new people coming in, to do this same work, because otherwise the existing the incumbent, the housekeeping agency. First of all, it's very difficult to get housekeeping agencies. You might feel that your current housekeeping agency is not doing a good work, but if you go to the market, it's very difficult to get, because the other one coming in might not be doing the same quality of work, right? So it looks very easy saying, okay, change the housekeeping agency. But if on the practical, if you see it, we have tried it many times here. Like, it's difficult to get a housekeeping agency. And second is there is no guarantee that the new one coming in, will also give you the same level of service or same quality. So it is best to, work with the existing agency and see how you can motivate them to improve their service quality, how you can train them, how you can, engage them. So that is the other best part. What we did was we engaged this, we took the same agency, same people, and then we had to design the trolleys so that it fits in the lift. Like, we did not have the challenge what Anil said in the other society, right? Our waste was always picked up from the door to door, but it was not like in a segregated manner. So we gave a trolley. The trolley had to be designed because our lift is very small. So we had to design the trolley in such a way that it fits in the lift, and then the housekeeping person can easily take the trolley to, to all the floors, collect it, and then take it to the composting center. So so that was one. So to define the process and then to do the awareness campaign and all. And the second part was to train the housekeeping staff. So we had to take a lot of sessions for the Actually, convincing the residents was the easier part, because resident itself were going door to door and they were doing the trainings, awareness sessions and all. And I mean, initially, the first 50-60% is the tough one. Once you get the 60%, then 60 to 80% is very easy. And then slowly 80 to 90%. So I think 80-90%, if you are able to achieve, that's more than good enough, because you'll anyways have 10 to 50% because of the floating population who comes in and goes out, and there are some residents who are not interested and all. But if you are able to reach 80-90%, so that is good enough. First 50-60% is the main challenge. But I think the main challenge what we faced was, how to train and how to motivate the housekeeping staff. Even now also, we keep getting some complaints saying that we are segregating, housekeeping staff is mixing it. So right from day one, it was mostly, how to keep motivating and keep ensuring that the housekeeping staff does the job, because they come in the mornings and there is difficult to monitor them, right? But residents, we can enforce and we can tell them, and the other part is we did not impose any fines on the residents, anything. We just laid out the guidelines and they followed. And that was another part. I mean, thanks to all the residents of Roseland Residency, because of their wholehearted support, we could achieve what we are today. We are almost a zero waste society.
Right. This entire piece about how to get things going, it really comes back to the model, the system that the first team sort of puts in place. But convincing people, especially those who, you can do that once, you can do that twice, but sustaining that is also, I think, a challenge, right? And I think that's a question that's been asked. How do you sustain that enthusiasm forever?
So I think one part is the management team, as well as the champions who are anchoring this, plus the housekeeping vendors. They need to show their 100%. Okay, that is one. Second is, I think you need to keep monitoring the whole process at least for a few months, and then you need to keep doing awareness, or keep doing keep stressing these points about segregation and all, like you use WhatsApp, your social media, and keep sending. I mean, we created posters and we conducted sessions initially, but it's very difficult to keep doing sessions for such a large community, every time. But yeah, you try out different things so that every few weeks or every month, you keep bombarding. It is like the ads, right, which we see on TV. Like you keep bombarding with the ad, and finally you'll say, okay, let me try something, so it's like that. So every few weeks, every few months, you do some refreshers or sessions if possible, or keep bombarding with posters and awareness sessions, and also that keep stressing the point that yes, we need to segregate, we need to do this, we need to do so, and try out some new things, innovations. Keep engaging the kids, especially. So even after many years, I mean, just before COVID, we started a new initiative where we started an initiative where we said, we'll create. We partnered with Sagar Mitra, and we engaged kids in our society, so that they will collect the plastic, and then they will bring it, and once in a week or once in 2 weeks, we kept a track record how much each kid is collecting the plastic. Then we gave them some certificates. So we shared the photos on social media, on our society WhatsApp group. We conducted some cleanup drives, collection drives. So you keep engaging the residents, keep engaging the kids, give them, motivates them with some certificates and all, and then keep showing, that the whole society is involved and all. So keep up the momentum. That's the message.
Right. I also want to ask Anil specifically, because I know we've done this in a particular society. Anil, you want to just share about Yashwin?
Yeah, so we had this project with a society called Ashwini Mudaye, which is a 670 flat complex, where we started literally from scratch, where there was no segregation happening. So and the society was still with the builder. So we were able to begin the process right from the introduction of the builder coming in and occupancy beginning into the housing complex. And there we started off with providing bins similar, the best practices of using a 2-bin 1-bag system. And we did a lot of trainings. Every weekend we had a session where, let's say, even 5 to 6 people joined. We used to still continue with trainings, and then this continued over a period of 3 months to almost 6 months, where literally every weekend, every once in 2 weeks, we used to have a training session. And after, and we were also interrupted by COVID in between. So when we started off, we began at the clubhouse in actual face-to-face meetings, but then we took it online after that, and we still continue to maintain the engagement and interaction. And to keep the motivation going and so on, we also set up some social media setups. We also had a website that was specially designed for that housing society, so that we could communicate on a day-to-day basis the segregation quality, and also who's segregating, who's not segregating. I think I'll quickly show you a screen of how we used to do that. I can just share that. You able to see the screen? Yeah. So so at the committee members, we used to have like a WhatsApp group like this, where every day we presented the amount of waste that was collected. There are 4 buildings there, and for example, here you could see on 28th April, 246 kgs of wet waste, 61. So all the details are presented on that website, on that WhatsApp group every single day, so that consciousness remains, that the fact that the performance of the housing society and their and their segregation quality is known to everyone, to all residents. And we also set up, I'll just show you just a moment. There's also a website that we made for that society specifically, where we were presenting this on the main screen, saying that how much waste was being generated by the complex. We had like a dashboard where literally every resident could click on one of those tables, and all the flats are covered in that complex with a color coding of green, red, and orange. And the green indicates that those are housing societies that are doing segregation. The red is those who didn't do it that particular day, and orange are the ones who are pretty much doing it 60 to 80% of the time. So in this way, we also we created a little bit of social pressure as well, so that residents were able to see what their neighbors are doing as well, not just and to sort of bring a sense of pressure to get really compliant and try to remain in the green zone at as much as possible. So that was how we engaged. And then we used to also present videos on a regular basis about how the reject waste was not compliant, what are the wrong types of materials going into reject, what should not be there. And then we shared the news of the area in Hinjewadi where they were burning sites and so on, and the fact that we wanted to prevent this from happening. We also explained all the different bins and bags and what is there, what needs to go into it. We had video guides where how to use the bins, what are the materials that need to go into it. Segregation guide that could be downloaded and printed, and maybe you could stick it on your refrigerator so that you know how to segregate and what goes into which bin. Then we also presented pictures of do's and don'ts, how segregation is done well, how it is not done, what are the mistakes, and also recognize those residents that were complying very strongly, on a regular basis. And during certain celebrations, like on 26th Jan or on 15th August, when there was a meeting at the clubhouse, then we used to talk about those residents that were segregating 80 to 90% of the time, and sort of acknowledge them, and also give them some gifts, some sustainable gifts, for example. So this way we engage the community and also recognize those people that were producing the results. I think just like Sidharth said, more than fines, I think it's about the positive things that if we bring and highlight those people who are complying and their efforts, I think that has a stronger impact than if you go on the negative side where you try to fine people and so on, and those who are not complying. So ultimately it's about creating that sort of social pressure and then also recognizing those people who quickly comply and join the journey. I think that's been very successful for us.
Thanks for sharing that, Anil. I'm going to come to a very important point. So I'm just going to come to a very important point here again, that Sidharth, Ashwini, both in your societies and many other societies who sort of, reach out and say that we will compost, it obviously comes at a cost, right? At some point of time, it's a cost-based decision because typically speaking, when a society does not choose to compost or, does not choose to manage their own waste, that's always cheaper. In the sense, it's always L1. How difficult was that choice in terms of convincing people to say that, hey, this is now going to cost us money? And what has sort of been the, I would say, returns, but also not limited to just in terms of, I spent 5 and I got 10 back, not that kind of a conversation, but how has that sort of contributed back into building something in your community spaces? So maybe we could, Ashwini, if you could share first, and then Sidharth can go next.
Yeah, initially all residents thought that it is very expensive and we cannot afford it and all. But as Anil said, there were few bins kept under each building, and every resident used to go there and drop the waste, segregated. But those who were not able to do it, they used to tell the buys, and they used to pay certain amount to them. So for us, like ours is a very small community. It is 165 units only. So for us, it was I mean, we told them, if you're going to pay buys instead of that, why can't we have a full-fledged system and which can be sustainable and we can get very good returns and results. So like when we compost, there is a large amount of manure. So we all use it for society garden, and we give it free to residents every month, like certain amount, like 3 kgs free every month, and above that they have to pay. I mean, it's like a very small amount. We take 10 rupees from them, and everyone is using it for their gardens or for the plants which are set up in the balcony, and they are very happy, and it is giving really good results. Even I am using it for my own plants, and it's like my plants are flourishing on that. So people are very happy about that. So it's the manure, and it's like after 6 months almost it is harvested, but no manure is left in our society. It's all used up. So people are really happy about it.
So lovely to hear. Sidharth, maybe you could also share your views in terms of costs.
Yeah. So, so just to give some history, so the Ministry of Urban Affairs, they came up with a guideline, solid waste management revised rules in 2016. So as per that, if you look at it, it is mandatory for a large society like us, to go do a composting at site or in-house composting. But it was not enforced on a local level. And when we started, the Swachh Bharat was in very early days. It was not like what it is now, right? So the thing was, like in our society, we had done other sustainability initiatives or green projects, if you call it, like rainwater harvesting, where It gave us a lot of benefit in terms of tanker-free society and saving on the tanker cost and all. So the residents already had a has a good trust of the management team. So they know that it's not like it's doing anything for some other agenda and all. So that trust is there. The second point was, like, we did not start with the composting project. We started with the segregation first, because once you have the segregation in place, it's very easy to do composting, whether you do it within your society or outside. Okay. And then fortunately for us, the mandate came from PCMC, that Swachh Bharat initiatives also picked up steam. There was mandate that, the waste will not be picked up. And also, so I think we were already, we were ready, like compared to many societies who had to struggle to get things in place. We were already ready. And then we also got the Swachh Bharat award. And I think the important point was convincing the residents. I think once the residents are convinced that why it is important, right? Finally, whatever, see, it's like you pay the cost to the society or you pay cost to the municipality, right? It is the same thing. Is nothing comes free. So it is like whether you pay to your society to do it or whether you pay it to PCMC, it is the same thing. Because tomorrow, if societies are not doing it, first of all, it's not what we are doing now, composting at society level and all. In many societies in PCMC and PMC, it is a decentralized model, which is the best model, because centralized model, it's very difficult to implement, because there are logistics costs, there are a lot of challenges on how you to ensure that the waste is coming segregated, and then the landfills are getting full. There is no space. The villages near the landfill, they are creating noise, saying that why we should carry your waste. You are creating your waste. You should manage it at your place. Why you are dumping it at our places. So a lot of things are there, and now it is actually a mandate. But when we started, there was no mandate. But it was through residents' participation, through management team support. So, we could do it. So we did not have much challenges there. And fortunately, the mandates came in and it all worked well.
Right. So, how much does it really cost to shift to a system? Like, pre-composting, how much were you spending on wet waste? And, now that you are there, how much are you spending? If you could just sort of give in, at least in terms of some proportion, because for a lot of people, spending on waste management seems like a unfair thing, because for so many years, somebody has picked it up for free, right? So if you could just share.
Yeah, so I think it's not free, right? It is not, somebody is not picking it up free, because as I said, like the amount of waste which is getting generated, and it is growing every year, right? It is multiplying. It's not even like growing by 5% or 10%. It is multiplying. And because of COVID, that multiplier has gone up. Earlier, let's say it was multiplying by 5 times. I think because of COVID, it has increased, because of a lot of those single-use items which has come into picture again, for the hygiene part and all. Okay, right? So I think the COVID has created more waste. So I think it's not like someone is picking it free, right? Anyways, you are paying for your housekeeping, right? The only additional cost is if you take specifically for the composting, right? So the only additional cost is your one-time capex and the monthly opex, right? So monthly opex is I think from the housekeeping labor cost, I think we did not add anything new labor. The same labors, once they pick up, they go to the composting and do this thing. So there is a one-time capex cost, and there is, I think, a slight monthly cost to take care of the culture or the microbes and the coco peat, or if you have dry leaves from your garden, you can use that. But I don't think so. It's a substantial cost,
Right.
For the society.
Right. Ashwini, your thoughts on that? And then we'll also ask Anil to share.
As our community is very small, like 165 units only. So I'm going to I'm going to tell the simple math actually in terms of like how much we spend, how much each unit spends on it. It is like less than it comes to 120 rupees per month per unit, and it's like easy, and plus we get tax rebate and manure we get back from it. So it's really negligible. I think it should be less than 100 for each unit for a month. So I mean I have calculated it for in some very simple terms, and rounded figure is like less than 100 only.
Right, right.
So it's like nothing, and plus we get sustainable lifestyle, and
Right.
we are kind of satisfied whatever we are doing. So it's a good thing in my opinion, and it's cost effective too.
Yeah. Yes, Sidharth, you were
So
saying.
I think, see, for these things, right? Like I always say, there are three basic things for human life: water, soil, and air, right? So if water is polluted, if your soil is polluted, air is polluted, I think you should not look at the cost. I think that is the change in attitude which is required, right? So anyways, you will pay indirectly to this climate change is affecting everywhere, right? So now you are paying for 2-3 months, your AC bills are shooting up, right? Because of the plastic pollution, you have some other problems, the plastic, anyways, we are eating plastic now, right? So almost in few years, I think maybe humans will adapt in such a way that we would also be able to digest plastic, because the amount of plastic which is coming into our environment and into our bodies is increasing day by day, right? So all these are actually indirect costs. So I think that is that discussion which needs to be triggered, and that is a debate which needs to happen, that climate change and all, whether we run after cost or we look at the climate change and sustainability, because anyways you will pay indirect cost, and it is not only about cost, right? So I think such things like water or the water pollution or this waste management or anything, I don't think so technology and money can fight this, right? It is a change in attitude which is required, because tomorrow you can see a lot of cities where there are thousands of crores, which are put in to set up waste to energy plants and other plants. I don't think so those are sustainable solutions. Finally, what will be required is change in attitude. In humans have to change their attitude to bring about that change. Pouring in money and bringing in technology and all, it's not going to fix these problems.
Right. Anil, please do share your thoughts as well.
Yeah, so that was very interesting, Sidharth. And to add to what Ashwini just said, in real terms, we were also, given that we are working in this field now, and the fact that we are providing these services, I think for us it's important to really talk to really understand what these costs are and how communities can really we can build it to a level where communities can afford it and really go ahead with it. And in general, when we actually put all the numbers together, it's actually quite surprising, because in terms of really starting off a project, at a community level particularly, it's very efficient, it's very cost efficient, far more efficient, more sustainable. That's what we found at a community level. So to begin a project, it could cost anywhere between 2,500 to 3,000 rupees of capex per household to get these kind of projects started, particularly around composting. Obviously, if you've got, most communities already have their housekeeping staff on which they are already spending. It's about training them and upgrading them, as was well explained by Sidharth. When it comes to maintaining these facilities, it doesn't cost more than 70 to 100 rupees, or let's say it depends on the size of the community. So the larger communities obviously get higher cost efficiencies, but smaller communities between close to 100 households could also get this done at 100 to 120 rupees per household per month. So when, we just to, as an exercise, we were, we were thinking about what can you buy for 120 rupees in a month. So for example, today we are spending like 1 liter of petrol is close to 120, just 1 liter of petrol. So it's like, spending 1 liter of petrol is equivalent for the entire month for a household to actually ensure that your air and soil and, water is not polluted. And the fact that you are not transferring the problem to somebody else's doorstep. And I think that's the biggest issue that we are dealing with in all our cities all across the country. The issue is that we are just transporting our waste, and and then somebody else has to bear the brunt of that problem, because it's either some village 30 kilometers outside a large city that ultimately pays the price, and they have to pay the most heavy price for all that pollution. And ultimately we are nowhere escaping in that. Finally our air, our water and our soil is going to be polluted. So I think these costs, as um, as Sidharth put it really well, I think we have to really balance out what these costs and what the value means to us, and really understand whether it's worth doing these projects, and finally, ensuring that we don't participate in the pollution that's being caused across our cities.
Anil, I have a very specific question to you. As a service provider, one of the things that we encounter is a lot of defunct technologies, defunct infrastructure. How do we sort of go with that? And I want to take an example of a garbage chute, which often we come across, and it's far more of a nuisance than actually, fixing something. And once you're done with that, I'm also planning to show everybody the video that we made of Kunal Icon, just to show how we converted that. But first your thoughts on that, and then we'll sort of screen that video.
Yes, so coming to a lot of, there's a lot of infrastructure because of the municipal solid waste regulations of 2016 that came in, that was brought in by the central government, and then local authorities began to adopt that law and practice it. What's happened is various different technologies and different types of methods of composting or even waste management have come into discussion. To meet regulations, a lot of there's been builders who have placed machines. There are different types of composting machines, and what we found through our experience visiting a lot of places is the awareness around managing these equipments, understanding how to operate them efficiently, get the entire system working, because it's because composting is finally, I mean, when you really look at it into detail, it's really a biological process more than a mechanical or mechanized process. And unless you have the understanding of the biology of composting, whatever machines or whatever mechanisms you have in place, it may not give you the right kind of results, because it's all about the right combinations of the various materials that you use, the cultures that you use, the moisture balances that you achieve, and so on. So what we've seen in the field is that a lot of machines are lying unused. Those that have tried using the machines have not been able to bring results out of it. There have been failures, breakdowns, and ultimately certain technologies have huge electricity costs. And so the community then gets, I would say, discouraged, and eventually a lot of communities put this aside and don't really utilize them. So from our side, we are trying to sort of, our interest is not really to end up, creating more costs and creating more capex for any community. So wherever there are any sort of infrastructure that's available, we try to make best use of it, try to make efficient use of it, try to put it into operation. Since we know the biology of composting, then from that we are able to use any machines and really bring it to some level of results. And ultimately our goal is to give that compost back to the community, which is really the end of the cycle. Until you achieve that, and until you are not able to provide that compost as a result, it's not really a cycle that is complete. And at the end, the goal is really to ensure that in a long-term basis, the waste is not going to get again delivered to the municipal system and contribute to the landfill. So if any community begins work on it, they should be encouraged. They need to be supported, and they need to be given all the support needed to really come to a place where it sustains itself. The cost targets are met to a large extent, which is comfortable for the community to bear. And eventually, these are the results that will really ultimately, result in the long-term environmental benefits that we are seeking out. So I think to summarize, I think what I want to say is that any infrastructure that is being built up, anything that's available, I think there are ways to put it into operation and get results out of it. So, you could get in touch with us and be in touch with us, and we could definitely support you and help you to reach those results.
Thanks for sharing, Anil. I'll just also quickly show, in this case, Kunal Icon, a project that we run. And here's the video. Yeah, so here you can see that there's like specific instructions. So it's about 900 households wet waste that is brought together. They're shredded. There was no space in terms of pits. So what we've done is that we've converted their garbage chute rooms, which are about 20-25 square feet spaces. And we've sort of started composting inside. And recently, the buildings underwent a painting scheme where they've also then sort of painted all of them, given them a little bit of vibe. So it really brings out that this community is very keen on composting. Every room looks very different, right? And what we do here is we do monitoring of all of these pits. So as you can see, there are different pits there. And you'll just be able to see what's happening there inside. So that's what we're doing at Kunal Icon. I will also just request Anil to speak a bit about that, so that everybody gets a fair sense of idea of what we're doing.
Yes, so at Kunal Icon, right, there was a very unique situation, and this is again, like Roseland, it's a very large community with more than 800 households. And initially, the biggest challenge was to really find the space to begin the project. And when I first visited Kunal Icon, to a large extent, even I was challenged in that sense that even I was not able to really visualize which spaces we could take and where we could start, with a composting project. And so then eventually, Makarand, who's one of the key committee members who unfortunately was not able to join today, he would have told us a lot more detail about it. But he, came up with this idea that maybe we could look at the garbage rooms, which basically were, so there are 29 buildings in this community, and they have garbage chutes in each building. And the garbage chutes were also causing a lot of issues in terms of segregation and in terms of how waste was being delivered by residents from different floors. All the waste was falling at the on the ground floor area in the garbage rooms. There was a big mess there. It was increasing the rodent activity there. A lot of pests. There was a lot of odors and smell, even going up into all the floors up to the 6th floor, because the garbage chute acts like a chimney actually. And so all these issues were there, and we discussed about it, and we thought about how to really implement this. And we started off with a pilot project where we just took 2 buildings and we said, let's begin there. And we set up a composting facility. We blocked the garbage chutes. We trained the residents to hand over their waste to door-to-door collection staff. And this was like in a very small way, in a phased manner, we began the project, because the community is so large, this could not have been visualized on such a large scale immediately. So I think that's another lesson for large communities. Begin something at a small scale, prove it, understand it, show it to the residents, convince them. These are ways to begin a project. You don't need to go large scale and immediate straight out. So after we began this project, on us in a phased manner. A lot of the residents who showed resistance and who were questioning the possible issues around odor and who had real concerns about pests and different issues, I think they were to a large extent convinced after a 3 to 4 month initialization phase that we did. And then in the meantime, there was also pressures coming from the municipal system to disconnect the wet waste, and all this came together. And a lot of excellent I would say work that was done also by the committee of Kunal Icon, similar to Roseland. I think they all got together a very cohesive community, and then presented this entire project, extended it to all the 29 buildings. And that project then eventually kicked off in the latter half of 2018. And the project still runs today in 2022. And we've gone through the entire phase of, I would say through the lockdowns, we've maintained the process. And I think the lockdowns were also very instructive. I think even Sidharth will vouch for it that, during the lockdown, a lot of municipal systems came to standstill. There were a lot of issues around collection of waste, a lot of question marks about whether the municipal system will be able to manage in the lockdowns. And I think communities like Roseland, Kunal Icon didn't need to think too much about it, because the bigger bulk of their issues were actually happening inside the community. And they were even sorting out their recyclables in a very organized, clean manner. So it really wasn't a problem for them. And really the resilience of the system really proved itself in a crisis like this. And these kind of systems, when decentralized, actually show their strength. I think that's something to keep in mind when it comes to larger systems that are decentralized, are very resilient and very resistant to, I mean, they don't collapse in difficult conditions. So I think this is the wonderful story of Kunal Icon. And the challenges that were faced with the garbage chute were converted into a solution, a long-term solution that is actually benefiting the wet waste system in the community, and that's been going on now sustainably for years to since 6 to 7 years now. Yeah, so this is I think the kind of interesting possibilities there are when communities really come together and really look at their challenges and then really try to sort them out. And these challenges are not those that cannot be overcome. And the great thing about a composting project is that in the ultimate analysis, composting never fails. There may be situations where the process is running out of hand. We've also had situations like that in Kunal Icon. In certain seasons, sometimes there's an increased fly activity. Sometimes there could be one or two places where the process is not perfectly running, and there could be some odors that are generated. Once in a while, some building may face a little bit of a problem. I'm not saying that composting doesn't come with its issues and problems. It's just that a community that has a vision and a focus will always find the solutions for it and really stick with a deeper understanding and a vision around it. And you can actually end up always being successful at the end. So I think that's what it's about.
So I'm just going to also open the floor for any questions. If anybody would like to ask something specific to Sidharth, Ashwini, or to Anil, just feel free to unmute yourself and ask. Feel free to leave a question in the chat box, and we'll also take that up. We had one question from someone in terms of compost. Which composting method is applied? Someone called MP. If you could just unmute and sort of share, I think that'll be better, because we've shared a lot of information. So we could answer something very specifically.
Yeah, hi. So I was just wanting to know in terms of the composting method. So one case we have a community with 160 to 165 households and the other one with 4,000 households. So how is the method actually changed with respect to the number of users or the quantum of waste that is generated? And also, Like, how is the space taken care of? Because what I understand is it will take a 3-month cycle minimum for the compost to get generated. So do they have enough space in the surroundings where they can, have that alternate fitting system or something of that kind? So how is actually done? Thank you.
Anil, I think best if you answer this one.
Okay, so when it comes to the difference between a 100 household community and a 4,000 household community. Now, straight away, obviously the waste quantities you should generally judge that each family generates about 750 grams of wet waste. That is based on our practical experience on the ground. A 100 flat community will generate about 75 kgs, and for that you would need, the space requirement is anywhere between I would say between 2.5 square feet to 4 square feet per kg of waste that is generated in the community. That is the way that you calculate your space requirements. And in general, if it is a smaller community, generally composting, as the quantity increases, you have to bring in different systems that will ensure a certain level of efficiency, because the more quantity that you're dealing with on a day-to-day basis, the kind of space requirement has to be compressed. You have to take into consideration the space availability and the cost that you have to incur to set up the system. So for that, generally, as the scale of the project goes up, some level of appropriate mechanization is definitely required. Smaller communities need not go into any sort of mechanization, so they can be completely free of any electricity, any energy use. But as you move to a larger and larger community, I would say more than 300 to more than 400 households community, then some appropriate level of mechanization, which may be as simple as just having a shredding machine to start with, so that you get uniform particle size for all your wet waste. That increases the efficiency of composting and also reduces the space requirement for composting. So when it comes to a larger community, again, as you grow bigger and bigger, also space constraints become larger and larger. Okay, so that's where space efficiency becomes more important. And when it comes to the biology of composting, I think handling the right kind of oxygen and aeration system in the composting system, the management of the moisture becomes more critical when it's huge quantities of waste that you're dealing with, because waste has 80 to 90% water content anyway, and that's something that needs to be, so a lot more effort needs to go into managing those aspects as the project size increases. So things like managing the moisture, making sure that the huge quantity of moisture that's generated during composting is absorbed by some material or by some system, by some uh, having some kind of a drainage system that will route out all the liquids away and connect it to the sewage system, or and then have the appropriate level of mechanization. So that's where the changes begin to come in as the scale goes up. But in terms of the actual science of it and the actual methodology, it's not really, doesn't change much. It's just these other factors that come into play when you change the scale of the project. Coming to identifying spaces in the community, I think that's another challenge and a question. In most cases, composting can be spread across the community, and when you say spread across the community, the first concern that comes up in the community is, oh, are we going to have waste spread all over the community now and have smell everywhere? That's the really the first concerns that come up when you talk about but in fact, this is a little bit, I would say, counterintuitive, because the more you spread the waste out, the more cleaner and more efficiently the entire process runs, and then nobody has to face any difficulties. And in many communities, we try to find innovatively wasted spaces, corners, compound walls, so that there's one wall already constructed that saves some space in the construction cost. And then many places you have gas cylinder banks which are now empty because they've moved to the piped gas system from the more centralized MNGL, for example. So those spaces become emptied, then we take those spaces, and then in such a space, cost becomes so efficient because there's already a constructed room, there is a overhead protection from rain, and all we need to do, like you see in this picture, is just to build some walls and get the project going. So then the cost really comes down. So it's about understanding there is no generalized, standardized design anywhere. It's all about understanding the situation, the actual on-ground issues, where the space is available, and then really looking at solutions. For example, in this picture here on the bottom, you can see even spaces like between the parking and the compound wall can also be taken up for composting. And what we've noticed is there's always, I mean, if you really look hard, there is always place for composting in the community. You can always pull out some space that is either nobody's using, or that are gone away in corners, or that are in between gardening spaces and parking. And we just need narrow, long spaces. Those are the most efficient ways to actually compost in an energy-free and as natural a process as possible. So I think that really, I would say that really summarizes my experience over these many years about how we've implemented projects.
Thanks, Anil. Any other questions anybody else would like to ask, leave a comment? Floor is open. I know we've exceeded time, but this is something that I think everybody's trying to crack. Yes, Rupesh, please go ahead.
Yeah, hi. Just a second, there is a noise. I'll come in the other room. Okay, Anil, hi, good evening. You must be remembering, I'm from Rose Valley. We had a
Oh, yes, Rupesh.
The composting process a few years back, and you also know why it was stopped. So,
yes.
So actually now, I don't want to go into the earlier details. As far as my personal opinion, I have not yet initiated again in my society, but I have been thinking a lot on this particular subject since the time I've become again the secretary. Now I'd like to restart this process, and I would like to have your time. I mean, in any time, either Saturday, Sunday in this month, if you have, so that we can have a one-to-one discussions, and then I can get it connected with my other committee members.
Sure, Rupesh, anytime. We've had so many meetings and interactions. It's been always great to discuss with your committee, and so let's I would say let's restart the entire discussion and see where we can take it.
Yeah. So that's nothing. I have so many things in my mind, but at this forum, I don't want to again spend the other time. So let's connect. I'll send you the message through WhatsApp, and then we can connect and plan to have a meeting.
Sure. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you, Anil.
If anybody else would like to also ask, share something, please feel free. Okay, so I think we'll conclude the session. If there aren't any questions, I thank Sidharth, Ashwini, and of course Anil on behalf of Team ProEarth here. Thank you everybody else for also joining us, participating and, asking very interesting questions. Yes, we will send out contact details as well. I will send an email out to everybody with a video recording of this, which will be accessible on YouTube. If you have any questions, feel free to ask on that as well. We'll just figure out how to answer your queries. Thanks again for joining us. And I wish that, more of us come together and, just do what is required of our part to just, take care of our environment. I think if each one of us does something, one step at a time for one earth, right? I think that's this year's theme. We'll definitely, make sure that our city is green, our localities are green. And at the end of it, I think the key is to have fun, right, while doing all of this. So let's not forget to have our bit of enthusiasm, joy, happiness while we are doing our bit to save the environment. Thanks, Sidharth. Thanks, Ashwini, once again. And thank you, everybody, for making time on a Saturday evening. Goodbye.
Welcome. Thank you. Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Thanks. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Thanks.